Welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, a podcast that helps you make great career decisions to get the most out of your career journey. We'll introduce you to the AXR network of established senior leaders and a handpicked group of future aspiring leaders who have it all in front of them. You'll learn what it's like in the top job and how to get there. Your hosts from AXR's specialist sales and marketing recruitment team will also land bonus episodes for you on how to work with recruiters, write a resume, and smash an interview, as well as our very popular market updates. It's the podcast that has it all. You can't get this career advice anywhere else.
Welcome everyone to another Your Future in Sales and Marketing podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. My name is Mike Dickson. Today I'm co-hosting with Andrew Cannock. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Our fifth, sixth time on a pod together?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
we've done a few.
Old hands.
Now, regular listeners will have heard Andrew and Amelia from our team present our future leader pods. And today we've got a bit of a mashup with two leaders in the studio. One at the very top of one of the biggest sales teams in Australia, and one very much on a pathway to the most senior business leadership levels in our view. We're joined by Michelle Foley, Chief Customer Officer of Arnotts, and Sophie Scott, Director of the Woolies Customer Team at Arnotts. Welcome to the pod, Michelle and Sophie.
It's great to be here.
I'm very excited. Thanks for chatting with us.
That's all right. We're going to get straight into it, and we've got, because there's four of us, we're going to try and make sure we structure our way through this excellent conversation to come. Well, shall I start off with icebreaker?
I'll jump in. So to get us warmed up, a couple of questions for you both. So Michelle, starting with you, tell us, what's your favourite brand, and it can't be one that you work on?
It's a shame because I wanted to say Tim Tam, which is why I joined Arnotts, but I won't. I would say for me, the brand Oodie. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, Oodie is a type of wearable blanket. It's like a blanket hoodie, one could say. And I love the brand because it was founded by a South Australian guy by the name of Ryan Fogarty. And he recognized a gap in the market while he was trying to sell weighted blankets that kept getting copied by many cheap interpretations. So the brand is anchored in great quality. It's fun. They've extended into adjacent categories well and have sold more than 6.5 million Oodies. I don't own one, just putting it out there. My daughter does though. But the best part about this brand is that Ryan developed so many brands beforehand and they all failed. And this was one of his final attempts, and he kept pushing on and has made a really successful global brand in Oodie. So I love it.
Fantastic. I think they did really well during the pandemic.
Indeed.
I even saw them start to pop up on the old Zoom call as dress standards started to sort of slowly slip.
Yes.
Different question for you, Sophie. Which leader would you most like to work for and why?
Hugh Van Clydenburg is my answer to this one because, so for anyone who doesn't know, he's the author of the Resilience Project and developer and co-host of the Imperfects podcast, which anyone listening obviously loves a podcast, so listen to that. I love that his mantra is all around gratitude, mindfulness and empathy, which really resonates with me. And I love how he gets to a really vulnerable place in his podcast with all different guests and covers all different life's topics. And yeah, I think he really sets the standard for what good leadership and being a good human is.
Awesome. I met him a few years ago in Melbourne.
Oh my God, did you?
I was totally starstruck.
Oh,
I just I was like, oh, can I have a picture, please? And he was like, yeah. He was obviously lovely. Like he lived up to what you would expect. But no, he was a great guy.
I've seen him speak twice, but I was fangirling both times.
Yeah. No, me too. Awesome. So to dive into the topic that we're going to explore today, so it's really around where is the sales function now? What journey is that function on? Then we'll come into what are your career journeys, what have they been, and specifically as people that have gone through sales yourself, and then we'll come on to what does the future of that function look like. To kick us off, in terms of where we're at currently, what do businesses expect of the sales function as it stands today?
I'll kick off on this one. At the Arnotts Group, we have a saying that's embedded in our business, which is if you're not in a function that's making a product, manufacturing, or a function that's selling the product, sales, you sure as hell better be supporting someone that is. And I think hearing that, you realise that the expectation on the sales team is actually really quite significant, and it plays a very pivotal role, particularly in a business like ours, where fundamentally we're an Australian manufacturer. And we are working really closely with our customers every day to ensure that our loved products, everyone loves, are in shoppers' baskets and are in Australians' homes. So my expectation of our sales team is that they're commercial leaders. And that might be different to how it's evolved, and we might touch on that a little bit later. But what I mean by that is our ultimate goal is to create joint value for us and for our retail partners. We can't succeed without them, and they can't succeed without us. So the teams really are always anchored around this concept of creating joint value. And there's a few areas within that I think I expect, and I know other business leaders in the industry do. And the first one is one common goal. You know, in Arnotts, we've got many customer teams that look after a variety of customers, but we ultimately have one common goal. We don't have competitive teams. The teams are ultimately not battling it out with each other. It's really a collective win, and we really do what's best for the greater good of the business. I do think that that's changed over time within sales teams. You often hear about the butting of heads between sales teams within the same business, but it certainly doesn't lead to as much success as you can going after the one common goal. So that's the first one. The second one is category and data centricity. You know, sales is not just selling products on promotion. It's not just the price lever. And I think the expectation of sales teams today is that all demand levers are really critical to success. Your distribution, your shelf, your range, pricing is a part of that. And that's a holistic approach to sales and not just the job of a category team, for example. And then the third one, and probably one that I still am helping myself understand, is you have to think beyond the current month. You know, sales team have really specific metrics, probably the most accountable within many of the businesses in which you would operate or work with. And so really having a team that's focused not just on the month, but the quarter, the next year and the year after that, because the only way that you can create value with your retail partners is having enduring partnerships and longer term plans. So we have a real expectation and a key metric in our business where our teams aren't just measured on what they deliver today, but what they're creating for tomorrow.
Yeah, great. And on your second point around the category first thinking, we've got an amazing example of someone who's spent time in category and come back into sales even stronger for it, which we'll come on to. And you spoke about the evolution of sales as a function there, Michelle. Sophie, what's your view on how the sales function has evolved over the last sort of 10 years or so?
I've loved seeing the journey of how it's evolved over the last 10 years, although I did have a bit of a wake-up call when I was thinking about this originally. I was like, right, where was it at the start of my career versus where is it now? I was like, oh no, 10 years ago, I was almost at Arnotts. I've been there nearly 10 years. So I was like, oh, that wasn't that long ago. So that was a little bit embarrassing. But the things I think have changed the most, definitely in category space, the way that we're using data, we've got more data than ever before, but the way we're now using it and turning it into insight and action is quite remarkable where it was versus where it is now. I also think net revenue management is kind of in that similar space where originally when I first kind of came across that function, I felt like it was the pricing police as such, you know, whereas now they're very much of the mindset of how can we strategically grow both our business and our customers' businesses through promotions and mix management, which is much more where we need to look into the future. So I think they're some of the biggest things that I've seen shifts on in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Just touching on the revenue management piece, it's quite interesting. We talk about the art and the science of revenue management, and a lot of what our teams do is the science. There's so much data, as Sophie said, it's very analytical. Someone can present you with a spreadsheet and go, here's a great 3-year revenue management strategy. And they pass it over to the sales team, and the sales team say, we can't execute that. So we really try and build up the capability within our business of not only the science of revenue management, but also the art. And some of that art is executability or negotiation or thinking about the impact on our brands. So that real balance between the data and what you end up doing is really important.
I think you talk to the breadth of commercial thinking there as well. Seeing the whole of the business and in terms of execution as opposed to just a number. And I think often there's an assumption that you're in sales, you're doing chasing a number. Yeah. But you're not, because there's this long-term perspective you talked to Michelle earlier as well. It's not just what we're doing next month. It has to be sustainable. And that all of business perspective, I think, is something we'll unpack a bit more.
Definitely.
Yeah, sure. And taking a step back, how do you think sales as a profession is perceived more broadly?
It's interesting because it depends. Well, firstly, whether you know what you think sales is, whether it really is that. And I'll touch on it from two lenses. The first lens is every year in our business, we have graduates who join our business. They've finished their university degrees, really interested in joining a big business like ours for great opportunities. And they get to choose the function that they'd like to be interested in joining. I can tell you hands down, no one chooses sales, which obviously offends me significantly. And I've often asked graduates in previous years, why don't you tick the box called sales? And their ultimate answer is, well, we don't really know what you do. These kids have business degrees, but none of them have had this degree in sales. It's like, oh, I did a marketing degree or an accounting degree or a finance degree. So I think there's still a perception that exists, particularly in the next generation of leaders coming through, that sales may just be about hitting a number. So that is interesting in itself and something that within our business we've really tried to change, particularly with our graduates and our early career talent coming through. We have lots of merchandisers in our business who work part-time in my team. Many of them are at university studying, and one of our big talent programs is having them end up joining the business in full-time roles because they ultimately do know what sales is as a profession. They're in a store every single day. So thinking about talent in that sense and educating them and changing their perception, that's one lens. The second lens, and probably a cliche, but many people within our business outside of sales think sales is really tough and that you're just negotiating with a customer or trying to hit a number. And I think sometimes that prevents others in other functions thinking how much they could get out of having a role in sales. And Sophie and I will touch on this a little bit later, but that's something we've really tried to change the perception of by giving opportunities to individuals to say, sales isn't all about that. My view is often the internal part of being a sales leader is often more difficult than the external part of being a sales leader. So we talk about that a lot. And then finally, even within our own business, we've got an operations team, a supply chain team bigger than our sales team. They often perceive the sales team as similarly going out there, selling with our customers, getting things arranged. And only recently, we had a session with many of our senior leaders. They got together, and one of our senior leaders, she runs our manufacturing plant in South Australia. And my team had done an education session on, what is execution? What is great execution looking like? And she came up to me after the session and she said, I had no idea what you did. And I've worked in this business for 10 years. Yeah. And I now will walk into a store and see a display of our beautiful products and realize there's strategy, there's planning, there's bringing the business on the journey, there's stakeholder management, and there's execution. I never knew how much depth there was to sales, and she's an employee. So I think in answering the question, the perception is starting to change. It's leaders like us that are trying to change that. But even within our own businesses, I think there's still a lot of education as what sits underneath a successful sales team.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got an obligation too in our business, and this is part of the reason we do the pod is to touch a broader audience and bring in people like yourselves as great guests who unpick what sales actually is. And we know our listeners aren't just people in the sales function, they're across all the functions. We've got a really broad listenership. So these kind of pods do a really good job. My son, who's graduated not long ago, is in the sales role with Kellogg's or Kellanova.
Fantastic.
And his degree it didn't touch sales at all, but he listened to some of the pods and he met some sales directors, friends of mine. He's like, quite like this. This is a pathway. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And he's really enjoying it, building displays on Pringles and whatnot.
Oh,
so if you go shopping in the eastern suburbs and see a fantastic stack of Kellogg's, that's Rory Dixon.
It's fantastic. And they don't only just learn about sales, they also learn a lot in those roles around dealing with conflict, being in a store, working in a store environment is pretty tough. So, there you go. Well, a sales pathway in the making.
Start to work. Yeah. Cool. We'll move on to and again, the same theme about evolution, but Sophie, from a evolution perspective, have sales teams got there yet in terms of being able to deliver against that range of demands that Michelle just took us through?
I think that plenty has changed over sales teams have evolved a lot in different ways. I think the commercial expectations of them, like Michelle spoke about, has increased, and I think that they've stepped up as a whole as the sales group have stepped up to the mark around what they need to deliver from a commercial aspect and the way that they show up to customers. And my team certainly do anyway, with the numbers that they use and the insights that they take to customers, I think has been amazing. Mm-hmm. There's a couple areas I think maybe we still need to do more evolution under a sales banner, probably more in the diversity space is what I still see as a really big opportunity. Gender diversity is much better than it was, but we've still got a long way to go. And if you look at the customer and where they are on their journey, equally, like our Woolworths team, our contacts, over 60% of them are female. So they've definitely got the balance right. Yeah. Very different to when I started in the industry, obviously. And I'd say it's similar for our Coles team as well. I think the one thing we probably do need to solve as an industry is how we get like part-time flexibility as well is something I'm passionate about to help that gender piece. If you want to come back into a sales role part-time, we haven't got to solve for that right now. If you're a customer-facing role, how does that come to life? So that's something I think we need to evolve into as retailers and suppliers together. Experience of diversity is a thing that I think we're getting really good at. I'm seeing lots of examples of retailers, suppliers switching sides to get experience on both sides of the fence, which is amazing and brings different perspectives. And we've also got some examples in our business as well where we've moved people from functions, from marketing into sales, and they're doing excellent jobs. So that's getting to a much better space. I think personality diversity is also one we probably need to unpack a little bit more. So when I look at, your classic salesperson, introvert versus extrovert, if I look at the retailers, they're getting a lot more introverts who are very data focused and very analytical, compared to where salespeople have traditionally been in the past. So that's one place where they've had to evolve commercially because that's where the retailers are at. So I think we've done a really good job there around balancing that mix as well.
I think there's a lot in that. We're very passionate about diversity in sales because I think the function needs it. The demands are so much broader, and if you're going to approach those demands properly, you've got to have a breadth of thought. Gender is a big part of that. It's definitely changing. Andrew and I were meeting a client yesterday, female sales director running a big sales function, introvert. Great. And it was just a super interesting, so smart, very strategic, very analytical, but not what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Or what some people would expect. Now, we're seeing a difference there. Where's Arnotts on the journey? How are you guys going?
I'll touch on that. I'll add to the point that Sophie raised around the cross-functional moves. We have an individual at the moment who's moved into Sophie's team on a secondment. So we had a secondment opportunity come up and she's a marketer. And she didn't put her hand up for the role, obviously. We encouraged her to apply for the role, and she's come across to be in the sales team for a year. And I think that opportunity is there for individuals to think about themselves, but they're not yet getting there. So from Arnotts' lens on that journey, the leadership, myself, Sophie, many of our other leaders who've had breadth of experience are encouraging the next generation of leaders to take these opportunities and see how much value it creates for them and for their career journeys. So I'm really passionate about it. And as you know, and I'll touch on later on my career journey, I'm not really a salesperson at heart. That wasn't my career intention. And I've kind of not stumbled, but found myself way from other opportunities. And when I talk about that, I really hope I can encourage others to think that maybe they're not in sales today, but there's an opportunity there. So we play a really big role in doing that from across the leadership team. We've got a little ways to go. We don't talent plan to the same extent that we should across functions, and I don't think a lot of businesses do. But I think it takes the passion of individual leaders to say, hey, opportunities are here, like come and get after them. So that's on the cross-functional piece. From a diversity lens, and as Arnotts has evolved over time, we're really fortunate to be in a really good position where we have a leadership team that is 50% female, 50% male. We have a sales team where we have more women than we do men. And a lot of that's in our part-time workforce, and we're still continuing to make progress in that space. I am the first head of sales or chief customer officer that we've had in Arnotts' 158-year history. So that's kind of a big deal. And I'm really aware of the need for diverse voices in leadership. And my passion extends well beyond representation in non-traditional business areas for men and women. So being the head of sales in Arnotts is quite unique in the industry. Our head of our Asia business, based in Malaysia, she's our managing director over there. also very unusual for a woman to be running an entire business. So really passionate that those non-traditional roles individuals and businesses are thinking about for both men and women. What about more men in HR? Yeah, what about more men in heads of marketing roles? So I'm really passionate about that, and Arnotts is really open-minded to it. We've made great progress. We've still got a ways to go, particularly within our supply chain function, representation of women in more senior roles. And we've recently joined the National Association for Women in Operations, a really great industry body that represents and helps women in that space to be able to continue. So lots happening, I think, but things like this and discussions like we're having now, if a few people just take a little bit away from it to say, oh, hang on, what will that mean for my career? Maybe I should think about a different experience. I think it will serve you very well.
Yeah. Again, back to the purpose of the pod, that's part of it, is really to challenge people's perception on their career journey. You don't mind, guys, if some of the listeners hit you up to say, could we talk about our career with you?
Absolutely.
You've done something that I maybe could do, but I'm not sure about it, because that will happen. You will get some LinkedIn messages if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Always
listeners.
happy to do so. The other thing I touch on in this space from where we are on the journey more broadly is around how we structure the team. So we've kind of touched on the diversity angle, but from a structure perspective within sales, the traditional sales team of just account managers and category has evolved in our business, and we've set up business teams, and those business teams are a cross-functional representation of marketing and R&D, category leads, packaging, finance, a little mini hub. And then the sales team sits separately to that. And the benefit of doing that, and Sophie can speak more, she's sat in one of those roles, is we have an expert in there who is the voice of the customer when the sales team isn't there. And that's worked really well for our business. And I know in many businesses, category still sits within sales, but I think starting to think and challenge those things for a different and really objective view of categories, a really good way to think into how sales may continue to evolve in the future. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the structure works really well, having the category voice in there. It brings that that customer perspective on in every conversation, which the sales team can't be in every conversation with the business teams. So when I was in that role, that was one of the things that I enjoyed the most, like bringing the customer view and the customer perspective and the executability of that for into every conversation. So it makes us as a business more customer centric.
And the idea of that is it frees you guys up as sales to do what you do best, which is spend time with your customer, not attending endless internal meetings to be that voice of customer. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. That's where the fun is.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into these career journeys, shall we, Andrew?
Let's go for it. Starting with you, Michelle. So talk us through your career journey today, because as you said, you're not a salesperson through and through. You spent a lot of your career in a very different function. So talk us through that journey and how did you get to this point?
Well, I've listened to many of your podcasts, and I was reflecting on a couple of them the other day where they kind of spoke to their journey when they were really young. And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. Maybe that doesn't relate to me. And then I realized it did, because I was working in business from the age of 12. My parents had a service station, a petrol station, and I was behind the counter selling cigarettes and chocolate bars and filling up people's petrol. And I think back then I learned lots of lessons about business. And at that point, it was already ingrained in me that would be something that I love. So I've always had a passion in that sense. Today, I lead the sales team, as you've touched on, for Australia and New Zealand, but haven't had the sales-centric career and don't really fit the profile of a head of sales. If I rewind, I really loved marketing. I started in a healthcare business after doing a commerce degree, had a role in sales, which didn't really know what it was back then, but, went into marketing, and a role came up at Arnotts working on Tim Tam. And, being one of Australia's most loved brands, I was really excited to join the Arnotts business. I didn't love it early on. It was a huge business compared to where I'd come from previously, and I found it really overwhelming. So many people, lots of process and structure, but really was able to kind of forge through that and started a career in marketing. I worked on lots of our brands that many of your listeners would know, like Shapes and Tim Tams and all of Australia's favourite products, and was really hell-bent on staying in my career in marketing. Amazing. Tick, next role, tick, next role. And I would say someone pushed me along. Our head of sales at the time said, would you like to come over to the sales team? And I said, have you got the right person? He encouraged me to apply for a role running our category, our shopper insights and shopper marketing teams. I committed to doing it for a year. I asked the business to write me a 1-year contract because I wanted to get back to marketing that quick. I stayed for 5 years and I never turned back. And that experience was so profound for me because, one, I did it way too late in my career. And I would look back now and say, why didn't I do that earlier? And two, it really overcame my perceptions of what I thought sales was and how important and the heartbeat that sales was of the organisation. And I loved that. So I went back to marketing a few years later. I was a much better marketer. I knew commercials. I knew what happened between what we planned in the business and what happened. And I had a much better lens of a phrase we often use in our business of when we're talking to ourselves. You know, sometimes you're planning in the marketing team and you think everything's going to be great and a salesperson turns around and go, are we talking to ourselves? So I came back a very, very different leader. At that time, coming into a senior marketing role, I really expected that my next path would be a CMO. I'd had all the marketing experience. I'd had my time in sales. And upon the ownership change from Campbell's to KKR, we had our new CEO join the business, my manager today, and he offered me this role. And I left his office and I went home and I was like, what? The head of sales? It hit me, like it really hit me. And I think there's times in your career where you underestimate your leadership capabilities. And he was not interested in my technical expertise of running Woolies or Coles. I certainly hadn't done that. I'd done it from the sideline in my category role, sitting alongside all of my peers that were running customers for 5 years, but I certainly wasn't the expected expert. So that worked out really well. And I think the beauty of having a leader running a team like I do is I don't get involved in the knitting of the team. They're the experts. I trust what they do. I've built up the capability of the team to do what they do really well with our customers. And my job is to set them a clear vision and to give them the resources that they need and really to be there to help them overcome challenges either internally or externally. As one leader once said to me, the best thing you can do is get out of their way. And I hope I do that. I think I do that. So that's been my journey, very different to what I ever expected it would be, but something that now I've done it and I've led this team for 4 years. I really love. And I think the biggest part of the role that I love the most is really building the capability of our team and seeing them shine and their careers develop.
When you started that story, I thought you were going to say at 12 years old, you got your first marketing role at Arnotts. That's long tenure. I think it's really, people would find it really interesting, Michelle, that someone who's made it to the level that you have would look back and say that you wish you'd done something differently in terms of the breadth. Why do you say that you wish you'd done that earlier?
I wish I'd done it earlier because I moved at a time where I was already a leader of a function. I think if you can move roles when you're still in more of a contribution role, you're more in the detail, you're kind of feeling it and seeing it, I think that experience would have served me really well. When I moved into sales, I was kind of learning that through what others were doing. I think it's always good to have that learned experience yourself.
Great. That sets us up nicely to explore Sophie's journey as an example of that. So Sophie, talk us through your story.
I've been very fortunate that I've had a variety of different experiences from different customers, different categories, different company size, from startups through to tier ones like Arnotts. And through that kind of variety, I've been able to get some really good building blocks to kind of build an excellent career within sales. A couple of the standout roles I think for me to mention were I got a lot of customer service foundational knowledge when I did the vendor replenishment relief, which if anyone doesn't know is sitting out at what this was at the time, sitting out at Woolworths in their head office, doing the ordering for your supplier. So you work still for the supplier, but you're sitting at Woolworths. And that for me really gave me a really good understanding of what good customer service looks like, what good communication with your customer looks like. Because if there was an issue, you'd have that Woolworths person right at your desk asking you for an immediate answer. I think that role and that breadth gave me that experience of what's customer service look like. And I kind of view account management as very similar to as customer service foundation. So that, I think, gave me a really good building block there. I then learned a lot of sales account management skills from a technical point of view during my time at Obella. So that was in very much startup phase when I started. So you kind of just had to learn how to hustle there, which was excellent. Really good time. Learn how to kind of do your sales call, how to have a high accountability for that sales call as well. So kind of the sales foundation, I learned a lot of that at Obella and then continued to build that through other roles. Then one of, I think, my most pivotal role was my time in category, actually, at Arnotts. So I'd been on quite a traditional sales route before that. Moving over to category in our business unit for the savoury team was completely different to what I expected. I wasn't that actually keen to go. We had a conversation about it. Michelle's like, it'll be great for you. I was like, I don't know if it will. Then I went over and honestly, I loved it. It was great. You really got to see how the business ran as at a much higher level than when I was just running an account specifically. I understood then how to influence the business and get results in a much more effective way than when you're just on one account. So that was fantastic. And also how to look much longer term than when you're the challenge, I think, with sales sometimes is you are in the day-to-day. So how do you get up from that and look further out? Category really gave me the opportunity to see the benefit in doing that and making time for that strategic thinking. So that was excellent. And then also from a leadership point of view, having that being kind of a thought leader in the category space within our business, that then gave me a huge opportunity to keep building my leadership skills, which is my favourite part of the role.
It'll be really interesting for our listeners to hear from people at slightly different levels in terms of how you're thinking about future career and what your pathway could look like. Sophie, do you want to keep going? What does the future look like for you? How are you thinking about your next step?
Well, I think I've got to the position I have to today through diverse breadth of experience. And I'd like to say that's from really smart career planning, but it wasn't. It was a little bit accidental.
Everyone's career is a bit of planning, a bit of luck and a bit of,
Very much luck. I'm very grateful that it's kind of all the dominoes fell into place. But I had that mentality of, I've got to chase this title, got to chase this next role, like what's the next promotion, which in hindsight, I think if I had worked on what are the skill gaps that I want for my dream role and what are the roles I need to fulfill them, I actually think I would have got to a more senior position quicker, ironically, than I was just trying to go vertically. So I wish someone had told me that earlier. And now I've had that epiphany. Now I'm thinking much more differently about my future career. So there's a role within the business that we have, which is the head of a business unit. So Michelle said our structure before. We have business units outside of the sales team. So Savoury business unit was the one I was in before. But we've got a few of them across the different functions. So the head of those business units is kind of like a mini GM because you've got responsibility for the whole P&L, R&D, marketing, finance, etc. They're really interesting to me because, again, I can keep broadening that skill set and it's effectively just a more elevated leadership role as well, which, again, is the part that I love. So that's really interesting to me. We also spoke supply chain could be something that would be interesting. I feel like it's another one where
Michelle's going, it'd be really good. And you're going, don't think so.
Yeah. I think it would be great just to have that, someone with a bit more commercial understanding to kind of have a bit more customer centricity in that space as well. So
I agree with that. I think supply chain and sales are not far apart. Technically, they are a little bit, but there's still a lot of stakeholder management, great analytical capability. You've got to be in the moment, but also thinking future. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I think they're both customer service foundation. So yeah, it could be interesting.
We're with you, Michelle. We're going to keep pushing Sophie towards that. And Michelle, for you, I think you might have an answer to this question around what's next. It could be surprising for people, potentially.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Depends.
I'll just add on the point you landed on supply chain here. About 6 months ago, I have now in my team the customer service team and our logistics team. So that really is a natural extension from the sales all the way through to getting our products into store. And we've changed some of our approach in that sense purely from the lens that the leader of that team now has a commercial sales background. We're really able to have good conversations with our customers from both a commercial lens and a supply chain lens. There's a lot more synergies between those two areas than I probably perceived before I took on that group. And it's also allowed now opportunities for some of those team members to be able to thinking about having a career in the sales team and vice versa. So we're really trying to keep broadening that. In saying that, my answer is not that I want to run a supply chain function, because there's no way ever that I would do that. I'm just going to put that on the record. That they're really, really intense roles, but really exciting roles. And I must say, I do love the operations part of my role now more than I thought that I would. And that's something that I continue to progress. Probably not a surprise, but maybe a surprise. For me, I love leading the team. Every single one of our team has a different journey, and I feel like I've got a great ability to be able to help them navigate that path. You know, when someone's standing above and they can see you in the maze and they're like, go this way, and just guiding people along the way. So I certainly want to keep doing that into the future, whether I do that leading a people and culture team, or whether I do that leaving, I don't know, the industry to go and help coach people in their future careers. Oh, who knows? I might start a podcast. No, I don't think so. Something definitely in that space of building up capability, and obviously always have a real passion point around inclusion and belonging and diversity. So I think I'd love to leverage that more in the future as well.
Great. Well, in the theme of looking forward, and I guess back to the sales function, guys, you know, what will it look like if we were to really jump forward, say, 10 years or so? You know, what will sales be in terms of a function? What will it be delivering? Will it be very different?
I don't think it will be fundamentally different. I think it will be more fun, because there'll be less admin with all the technology advances that we're getting and the power of AI, which is already here to an extent. But as that gets more ingrained in businesses, all that mining for data and looking for insights, that's all going to be done by AI in my view. And all you're going to get is a list of opportunities to go after. So how do we as a sales function just turn those insights into action and focus on the execution of that? So I think it's going to shift a little bit, but it will be less so in the doing and more so in the action. Less so in the finding of the insights and more so in the action. So that's why I think it will be more fun. Like that's the piece that I enjoy, turning the insight into the so what and now what. I do think, though, that won't be at the expense of relationships. So I think that's one thing to call out, the retailer and supplier dynamic. Whilst data will obviously become an even bigger part of that conversation than ever, at the end of the day, it's still two humans working together, and humans like connection. So I still think that relationship piece will always be there, a fundamental through sales.
If anything, it becomes even more important, right? Because that's the influencing piece that you can do uniquely well over something like an AI tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were taking a brief from a client earlier this week, and one of the big selling points they put to us was this role is much more in front of the customer than other sales roles. You know, so much more external than internal. And there's a risk that a lot of salespeople will get sucked into internal focus, and that's kind of going away from what they're there to do. I think a future where there's more contact with the customer and technology helping you facilitate that has got to be a good one.
Yeah, it's challenging for businesses, because with technology comes projects around transformation and data, and the same individuals who are trying to use and get advancements in technology to unlock space to spend more time externally are often the individuals who are working on projects to help businesses transform data. And I know in our business at the moment, we've taken off 2 of our key sales team members to be part of an internal project on data and transformation. And it's been amazing for their careers, because they've had this fantastic experience. But at the same time, it's for the rest of the team sitting there going, when are we going to automate this? And when is this bit going to get easier? Because I want to spend more time with the customer.
Yep.
And I hear it so much within the industry from so many leaders. What's one thing you want to do better? We really need to be more external focused. And I think the last few years have been challenging for so many businesses, supply challenges, COGS going up, inflation, all of that stuff happening. It's really easy to get more bogged down in what's going on in your own backyard. And I think it's our job as leaders to try and free some of that up for our teams to go and do what they do best.
Great. Moving towards the end of the pod, guys, a couple of areas I want to just touch on around advice. What should people do if you're giving advice to invest now in terms of their careers, future-proofing from a skill development point of view, so they're ready for some of the things we just talked to?
I would talk more to the how, not the what, in terms of future-proofing a career. And what I mean by that is to the point we just touched on around on data and things being available and at your hands, I think the leadership capabilities that individuals are working on building those capabilities is going to be much more of a differentiator than your technical expertise. You know, you and I could have the exact same resume of all of our sales experience and we both go forward for an interview. The differentiator is going to be the leadership capabilities. So I've always encouraged individuals, don't think that it's not about that as much as it is about you being the technical expert, because the technical expert is the baseline that everyone has. You're all subject matter experts. So getting breadth of experience in roles where you can develop leadership capabilities, I think is a really, really good way to future-proof your career. And then the other one we've touched on a bit is giving yourself different experiences in the what. Marketers encourage you to think about going to sales and the other way around. I was saying to Sophie the other day, you can have 15 years experience, but it's the same experience every year for those 15 years you're going around the block. You know, having a thought around, I want 15 different experiences or 7 or 8 different experiences over a longer term horizon is a really good way to future-proof your career. We look at resumes, we look at individuals within our business in terms of what they can bring from a breadth perspective more than we've ever done before.
It's great advice. Absolute takeaway. Michelle, I agree. And finally, from a business point of view, what do you and other business leaders need to do in order to ensure that you're attracting the right sort of people and retaining them and developing them for what that future of sales looks like?
To attract into them, I think there's really good examples of bringing in early young talent like grad programs, which we've had a successful grad program at Arnotts, also via the field team. Like now in my team, I've got three people in the team who previously were in our field team. So bringing them through the business, because that's bringing that different diversity into sales. So I think that's a great way to attract and give people a taste for what sales is. I think from a development point of view, Michelle touched on it earlier, but really purposeful talent planning, which we're spending a lot more time doing. And Alice is one example of that. Moving from marketing across to sales was because she was a key talent and those skills are transferable. So she's doing fantastic. And that's a great example of that. So how can we do more of that cross-functional talent planning and be kind of having an open mind to what a salesperson traditionally looks like, as we spoke about earlier. They don't have to fit the cookie cutter mold. They can be from all different walks of life and be a fantastic salesperson.
Yeah.
And then from a retain point of view, I think it's really important for people to know that sales does have highs and lows. Like you win some and you lose some. So as long as you're celebrating the wins and you're learning from the losses, to me, that is what makes sales such an enjoyable career.
And when you mentioned earlier that your career has been a bit of planning and a bit of luck as well, but you've got to put yourself in the position to be the recipient of that luck. So the person you mentioned, Alice, who's gone marketing to sales, she may not have been saying she wants to go into sales, but I bet she was being proactive in her career conversations, engaging with the right people, and that then unlocked an opportunity that she maybe didn't plan for or see coming, but ultimately would be beneficial.
Exactly. And nothing goes past some good, old-fashioned hard work as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there is definitely the visibility part that individuals like Sophie's referred to here, creating that themselves. They may not know what's coming next, but they're certainly doing everything that they can to ensure that they're building up their leadership capabilities so that when an opportunity does arise, fantastic. And I think there's a real balance between going so hard after something, and Sophie spoke about it earlier in the vertical, but also being open-minded. And I think that open-mindedness, there's more of that coming through, which is excellent for many businesses. We'll make a much better set of leaders by having the future leaders much more breadth of experience early will only serve the industry well.
Yeah, great. I think that's great way to finish the pod. I think if there's introverts there thinking, well, I'm not very good at visibility, it's okay. Just be curious. See it from a mold of seeking to understand, and you will gain visibility as a result of being curious. Michelle, Sophie, what a great conversation. Thank you guys so much for coming on the pod today. I know it's not everyone's comfort zone, but you guys smashed it. You did a really good job. Both of you really enjoyed it. Listeners, if you're new to the pod or haven't yet connected with AXR, don't wait until you think you need to move. We're interested in the whole of your career. Being part of our community will equip you with everything you need, stuff you cannot get anywhere else, to understand your career pathway and to make a great career decision at the right time. Podcasts, blogs, guides, reports, coaching, and encouragement. We're here for you. From me, Mike Dickson.
And me, Andrew Cannock.
That was really slick.
Like a well-oiled machine.
Thank you for listening, and we'll both be back soon with more great leaders, topics, and conversations to help your future in sales and marketing.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more career insights and advice from Australia's inspiring sales and marketing leaders. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.